When you think back to the early 90s, there was nothing bigger, was there, in the cinemas than this. Remember this poster? And that brilliant song, of course, sung so beautifully by the late Whitney Houston. I Will Always Love You. The film was The Bodyguard. It was breaking box office records around the world. But now it's been embroiled in yet another royal story. And as ever, I wanted to bring you the inside track as to how true this story is. You see, The Bodyguard starred Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston to great acclaim. And as I say, it was one of those sleeper hits that people didn't necessarily think was going to take off. I don't mean that because of Whitney Houston, because of course she was an international megastar at this point. But pop stars crossing into films does not always work. Ask All Saints. Well, the Spice Girls did it. You see what I mean? It doesn't necessarily transcend that that's going to be a mega hit. A few years later, this particular story emerged about The Bodyguard 2. And this is what normally happens in Hollywood circles. They sniff a hit and then they think, well, let's make, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and see if we can just milk that gravy train dry. Now, of course, one of the people who wanted to be on board was none other than Kevin Costner, the debonair star of so many mega movies, including No Way Out. Back, of course, now with Yellowstone on Paramount+. A debonair, good-looking guy, very charismatic and bankable box office, as they say. The story circulated around that time that Princess Diana would be making an appearance, if not just a cameo, maybe a full-blown actor's debut. I mean, ridiculous when you think about it, even back then. But of course, Diana loved the media. She loved the press, a little bit like her youngest son, Prince Harry. Whatever he says, they're addicted to it. And she went along, let's not forget, because, again, to be associated with such a good-looking debonair man as Kevin Costner did a lot for a girl's esteem. Now, fast forward, and apparently this particular script was on the desk the day that Diana passed away. It may have been on Mr. Costner's desk, but it certainly was not on Diana's desk. I can tell you 100% that this was just fallacy, a great Hollywood spool story. She had no intention of making her mark on the silver screen, particularly in The Bodyguard 2. Naturally, if she was going to do something like that, it would have to be an original, not following on from someone. But of course, Kevin does like to spin that story. He's a Hollywood star. That's what they do. Fast forward to 2023, and apparently Meghan Markle has been spurned by Mr. Costner for the Bodyguard 2 sequel. Ultimately, 100% not true. But you see, again, you're aligning yourself to people who are in the news, and then people pick it up and actually put it out as a real story. As you know, here on this channel, we do delve deep and we have the contacts to make sure that we find out the true stories behind those particular headlines. And while the rest of the pack want to go out around the world saying, oh, well, she's been spurned, on this particular occasion, Meghan Markle was never spurned. She was simply never invited to be in it. And as yet, there are no confirmed backers, no plans to start filming, but it's a great story to keep someone in the headlines. And more importantly, when they're going through a very tricky divorce proceedings, swift away from that, a negative to a positive. I hope that explains it all. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.